I thought my wife was at work, until I saw her car at my best friend's house. She said she was working late. I believed her. But when I pulled up to Jason's house and saw her car in his driveway, I stopped believing anything at all. My name is Eric, I'm 34. And up until recently, I thought I had a pretty solid life. I work in IT, specifically as a systems analyst for a large consulting firm in downtown Chicago. I'm the kind of guy who thrives on structure. Same coffee order every morning, same gym 3 times a week, same parking spot at work. I like knowing what to expect. I thought that predictability meant stability. Turns out, I was wrong. My wife, Rachel, is 32. She's a registered nurse at a private clinic, and we've been married for 6 years. We met at a wedding when we were in our mid-20s. She was the maid of honor. I was the best man. She had this blunt sense of humor, and a smile that made you forget your own name. We hit it off that night and never really looked back. Our relationship, at least from my perspective, was strong. We didn't fight much, and when we did, it was over little things. What to watch on Netflix, where to spend the holidays. Nothing earth-shattering. We didn't have kids yet, though we'd talked about it. The plan was always to wait until we were more settled, financially and emotionally. Now I see that as a polite way of saying we were stalling. I thought we were happy. I really did. Rachel worked odd shifts, 12 hours, sometimes overnight. But I admired how dedicated she was to her job. If she said she was working late, I never questioned it. I respected her space, gave her the trust I thought every solid marriage needed, and then there's Jason, my best friend since 8th grade. He's 35, a freelance videographer who mostly does weddings, corporate gigs, and social media ads. We've been through everything together. Failed college classes, breakups, job hunts, you name it. Jason is one of those guys who lights up a room. People gravitate to him. He's charming, funny, easygoing, the kind of friend you can call at 3 a.m. without hesitation. Jason and Rachel always got along well, which at first seemed like a blessing. They'd joke around, share memes, even team up to tease me. It never bothered me. I liked that they were close. I liked that I didn't have to choose between my wife and my best friend. I thought it made things easier. Looking back, there were signs. Little things. Conversations that stopped when I walked into the room. Inside jokes I wasn't part of. Random excuses from Rachel for why she didn't want to hang out with our mutual friends if Jason wasn't there. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I chalked it up to stress, or just their easy dynamic. I trusted them both. Fully. If you'd asked me who I trusted most in the world, I would have said Rachel and Jason, without even thinking. That blind trust is what made what happened next feel less like a betrayal and more like a collapse of my entire reality. It started like any other Thursday. Rachel left for work around 6:45 a.m., dressed in her scrubs, hair tied up, travel mug in one hand. She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and said, "Long day today. Might not be home until after midnight." I barely looked up from my laptop. I remember mumbling something like, "Take care. Text me if you get a break." She didn't. Around noon, I decided to swing by Jason's place. He had borrowed my Bluetooth speaker for a client shoot a few days earlier, and I needed it for a backyard get-together I was hosting that weekend. I figured I'd drop in, grab it, maybe catch up for a few minutes. Jason only lived 10 minutes away. His neighborhood was quiet, the kind where everyone knew each other but still minded their business. As I turned onto his street, something caught my attention. A silver Toyota Camry parked in his driveway. Same model, same scratch on the left fender. Rachel's car. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but no. Her custom RN Life license plate frame was right there. I slowed down and parked 2 houses away. My stomach dropped. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was supposed to be at work. Her clinic was a 30-minute drive in the opposite direction. I sat in my car, engine running, heart racing. I stared at her car like it might vanish if I blinked. 1,000 thoughts went through my head. Maybe she was dropping something off. Maybe Jason needed help with something. Maybe she was on a surprise break. I got out and walked slowly toward the house. Jason's front door was cracked open. I didn't knock. I just stepped inside. The first thing I heard was laughter. Rachel's voice, unmistakable, followed by Jason's, softer, closer. Then silence. I turned the corner into his living room. Rachel was on the couch, not in scrubs but in a tank top and shorts. Clothes I hadn't seen her leave the house in. Her legs were resting on Jason's lap, her hand playing with the hem of his t-shirt like it was second nature. They looked up at me like I'd walked in on a crime in progress. Her eyes went wide. Eric! Jason stood quickly, knocking her legs off his lap. Man, wait. This isn't what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like, I said. Rachel scrambled up. I didn't know you were off today. Clearly. They both stood there, frozen. I could smell coffee, shampoo, and the kind of closeness that doesn't happen by accident. I didn't scream. I didn't punch anyone. I turned, walked back out the door, and drove off without another word. Because in that moment, the damage was done. There was nothing left to explain. I didn't go home. I drove aimlessly for an hour, through streets I didn't recognize, past places that blurred into each other. I ended up in a cheap motel off the highway and paid in cash. I didn't want paper trails. I didn't want Rachel or anyone knowing where I was. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the stiff mattress, staring at the popcorn ceiling, trying to convince myself I hadn't just watched my life fall apart in someone else's living room. I kept replaying it. Rachel's casual position on the couch, Jason's startled face, the way neither of them ran after me. They didn't even try. By morning, the shock had started to calcify into clarity. I went back to our house when I knew Rachel would be at work. I didn't want a confrontation. Not yet. I moved through our home like a stranger, packing a duffel bag with just the essentials. Some clothes, my laptop, chargers, a few personal items. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter. No note, no explanation. I figured she didn't deserve one. I texted a coworker, James, who had a guest house in his backyard and once told me to use it if I ever needed to get away. He didn't ask questions when I showed up later that day. He just handed me the key and said, "Stay as long as you need." I turned off my phone for the next 2 days. When I finally turned it back on, I had 19 missed calls from Rachel, a dozen texts, and one long voicemail that I never listened to. The messages ranged from, "Please call me," to, "It's not what it looked like," to, "We need to talk." I deleted them all without replying. I wasn't interested in explanations. I had all the clarity I needed. On the 4th day, Rachel showed up at my office. My assistant buzzed me and said, "Your wife's here. She's kind of emotional." I told her to let her in. Rachel came in looking tired, like she hadn't slept either. Her eyes were red, but her makeup was perfect, always the presentation first. She sat down across from me, hands trembling in her lap. "Eric, please, can we talk?" she said. I stared at her. About what? How long it's been going on? Or whose idea it was to lie every week? She looked away. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. I was lonely. You were always working, and Jason, he was just there. It got out of control. I nodded slowly. "So you thought sneaking behind my back would fix that?" "No. I don't know. I didn't want to lose you. You lost me the second you stepped into his arms." She started to cry. I didn't. I told her flatly I was filing for divorce. I had already contacted a lawyer. She tried to touch my hand. I pulled back. We were done. There was nothing left to salvage. The divorce moved fast. Faster than I thought it would. Maybe because there wasn't much to untangle. No kids, no shared business. Just two people who used to believe in something, now signing it away in silence. Rachel stayed in the house. I didn't fight her on it. It had stopped feeling like home the moment I found her in Jason's living room. I let her keep the furniture, the decorations, even the dog we'd adopted together. It wasn't about being generous. I just didn't want reminders. I wanted distance, clean lines, closure. Our friends were split. Some stayed quiet, probably, afraid to pick sides. Others reached out to offer the usual. "Sorry, man," or "I had no idea," or "That's so messed up." The ones who mattered stayed. The rest? I let them drift. Jason tried calling. Once. I declined the call and blocked his number. He sent an email a week later. A rambling apology that started with, "I never meant to hurt you," and ended with, "I still care about both of you." I didn't reply. I forwarded it to my lawyer and moved on. The truth is, I wasn't angry in the way people expected. I didn't punch walls or drown myself in whiskey or spiral into some melodramatic mess. I was calm, detached, like someone reading their own obituary in the paper. I'd been gutted, but I'd also been freed. The illusion was over. Rachel, on the other hand, tried to make amends. She called again after our first court hearing, wanting to clear the air and explain everything. I agreed to meet her at a public park. We sat on opposite benches, 10 feet apart. She told me it started 6 months earlier. Casual at first. Texts, jokes, emotional support. It turned physical 3 months ago. Jason had always been around, and according to her, he made her feel seen. I asked her if she ever planned to tell me. She didn't answer. I told her I forgave her, but not because she deserved it, because I refused to carry her betrayal any longer. I wasn't going to be the bitter ex-husband who let someone else's lie rot him from the inside out. She started crying again. I didn't. Our families took it about as well as expected. My parents were livid. My mother called Rachel a disgrace in scrubs, and my dad offered to help me move, which was his version of emotional support. Rachel's family reached out once. Her sister sent a half-hearted, "Hope you're okay" text. That was it. The gossip traveled quickly. Mutual friends started avoiding eye contact. People I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions. But the worst part? No one seemed surprised. That's what stung the most. Not that it happened, but that everyone thought it could. I cut ties, moved across town, got a new job, deleted old photos, cleaned out every corner of my life that still had her name in it. It was over, but the damage didn't fade. It settled in, quiet, permanent. It's been 9 months since the divorce was finalized. Enough time to breathe. Enough time to see the mess for what it was. Not just betrayal, but a wake-up call I never asked for. I've rebuilt, slowly. I rented a small apartment on the other side of the city. Nothing special, but it's mine. The quiet is different now. It's not lonely, it's peaceful. I cook for one, sleep diagonally on my bed, and keep the TV on sometimes just to fill the silence. And oddly, I like it this way. I know where everything is. I know who's walking through the door. There are no lies hiding in the corners. I got promoted a few months back. Threw myself into work, but not in a desperate way. More like clarity. Distraction turned into purpose. My manager noticed. Said I seemed more focused. I didn't tell him the reason was because I had nothing left to lose. I also started therapy. Something I would have rolled my eyes at a year ago. But it's helped. A lot. I've learned how much I ignored. How many red flags I talked myself out of seeing. I used to think trust was the most important part of a relationship. Now I think it's self-respect. Because if you're not willing to walk away when someone disrespects you, trust doesn't mean a damn thing. Rachel tried contacting me again, once, around the holidays. Just a "hope you're doing okay" text. I left it on read. I'm not angry at her anymore. I'm indifferent. And honestly, that scares people more than rage ever could. Indifference is final. It's the last page of a book you're never going to reread. As for Jason, I haven't seen or heard from him since that one pathetic email. Mutual friends told me the two of them didn't last long after I left. Apparently, once the secrecy died, so did the excitement. They imploded within 2 months. I didn't celebrate, but I wasn't surprised. Some people only love what they can ruin. Dating? Not yet. I'm not closed off, but I'm not looking. I know now that healing isn't just about moving on to someone new. It's about standing still long enough to understand how you got there. I've learned to enjoy my own company again. That's a win in itself. The betrayal hurt. It cut deep, but it also cleaned out the rot I didn't know was growing in my life. I see things sharper now. People, intentions, myself. I no longer assume loyalty just because someone shares a bed or a history with me. The truth is, I thought catching Rachel and Jason together was the worst moment of my life. It wasn't. The worst moment was realizing I'd ignored myself for years. My gut, my standards, my peace, just to keep something broken from falling apart. Now, I let things fall, and I sleep better than I ever did.